Welcome back to Master 79. In this lesson, we are doing a complete ielts speaking part 2 and part 3 walkthrough on the topic of a popular place for sports. You will see the 1-minute brainstorm, then a full band 9 model answer for part 2, and then all 4 part 3 questions answered in full. First, how these two parts actually work. In part 2 you get 1 minute to prepare and make notes, and then you speak alone for 1 to 2 minutes without interruption. Part 3 has no preparation time at all. It is 4 to 5 minutes of abstract discussion with the examiner. Part 2 rewards a long, detailed, well-organized answer, not a perfect one. The 4 prompts are a safety net, not a syllabus. And in part 3, if the examiner challenges you, that is a good sign, not a penalty. Here is the cue card exactly as it appears on the task sheet. Describe a popular place for sports, for example a stadium or something. You should say where it is, when you went there, what you did there, and explain how you felt about this place. One source note: the phrase, for example a stadium or something, is unusually informal for a cue card, but we have kept the wording exactly as given rather than correcting it. This is the plan I use in that 1 minute. 4 boxes, keywords only. Never write full sentences because you will end up reading them out flatly. Box 1, a frame, 1 sentence naming the place and why it counts as popular. Box 2, the bullets in order: where, when, what. It is free structure, so use it. Box 3, 1 vivid detail for each bullet: a smell, a sound, a price, a name. Detail is what separates a 7 from a 9. Box 4, the feeling plus what it made you realize. Aim to still be talking at 1 minute 45. So here is the grid I would actually scribble. Notice these are fragments, not sentences. Our candidate is Mai, 20 years old, from Hanoi. She is invented, so please copy the method, not the story. Where Mai Dinh National Stadium in West Hanoi, a new district, on a main bus route. When 2 years ago, a Saturday evening in December. What arrived 2 hours early: replica shirt, grilled corn, seats behind the goal. Feelings: overwhelmed, then belonging. Before the answer, here is the language Mai is aiming to use. Notice these are collocations and whole phrases, not single fancy words. It sits in the western part of the city. It draws enormous crowds. There was a real sense of occasion. To soak up the atmosphere, the entire stand erupted. And for the reflection, what struck me most was here is the band 9 answer, 1 section at a time. First, the frame and the where.
I'd like to talk about Mai Dinh National Stadium, which is easily the most popular sports venue in my city, Hanoi. It sits in the western part of the city, in a district that's been developed fairly recently, so it's surrounded by wide boulevards, apartment blocks, and a huge open plaza, and crucially it's right on a main bus route, which is probably why it draws such enormous crowds.
Now the when.
I went there for the first time about 2 years ago, on a Saturday evening in December, to watch a national football team match with my older brother and 2 of his university friends. He queued online for hours to get the tickets, so there was a real sense of occasion about the whole thing.
Now what she actually did there. This is the longest section, and that is deliberate.
As for what we actually did, we got there absurdly early, around 2 hours before kickoff, partly to soak up the atmosphere, and partly because my brother insisted on buying the full kit: a replica shirt, a flag, and one of those inflatable carpers. We wandered around the plaza where street vendors were grilling corn and selling iced tea, then found our seats high up behind the goal. For the next 90 minutes we sang, we groaned, and when we scored in the second half the entire stand erupted. I have honestly never heard anything like it.
And finally, the feelings plus a reflection to close.
How did I feel about the place? Overwhelmed. At first, I'm not a particularly outgoing person. so being packed in with 40,000 strangers was quite intense. But that faded very quickly, and what took over was this extraordinary feeling of belonging, of everyone caring about exactly the same thing at exactly the same moment. What struck me most was that the stadium itself is fairly ordinary concrete, a bit worn in places, and yet it becomes something special purely because of the people in it. I've been back 3 times since, and I'd go again tomorrow if I could get a ticket.
Here is the whole answer together so you can see the shape of it. Read along, then pause the video and read it aloud yourself. This is the first half. And this is the second half of the same answer. Time it. Delivered at a natural pace, this runs to roughly 2 minutes, which is exactly what part 2 is asking for. So why does this reach band 9? 4 reasons. Fluency and coherence. It is signposted without sounding scripted. Lexical resource. The collocation is precise and unforced. Grammatical range. Past perfect, relative clauses and a cleft sentence, all used naturally rather than displayed. And task response. Every prompt is covered in order, each one extended past the minimum, and the answer ends deliberately instead of trailing off. Now part 3, and this is a real gear change. Same topic, completely different job, no more storytelling. Now you analyze. The questions move to people in general, to causes, consequences, and policy. Your answers get shorter than part 2 but denser, roughly 40 to 90 seconds each. And you are allowed to hedge, to disagree, or to say it depends, so long as you then explain why. Use the same 4-step shape for every single question. A. Answer, commit in the very first clause. B. Because one clear reason developed, not 4 reasons listed. E. Example, ground it in your own city, your own school, people you actually know. And B. Balance, concede, qualify, or add the exception. That last step is the band 9 move. Because it is the same 4 steps every time, it holds up under pressure. Question 1. Do young people like to do sports? First, the plan. Notice the answer is built on one distinction, watching versus doing. And here is the full answer.
On the whole, yes, but I think there's a real split between watching and doing. Almost every teenager I know follows football or basketball obsessively, but far fewer play regularly once they hit the exam years, simply because studying swallows up their evenings. There's also a gender dimension. Boys are pushed towards competitive team sports from a young age, whereas girls are more likely to drift towards individual activities like badminton, yoga, or running, and those are often the ones they stick with into adulthood. So I'd say the appetite is definitely there. What's lacking is time, and in a lot of cases somewhere convenient to play.
Question 2. What are the benefits of sports for children? The plan here is to rank the benefits rather than list them. And here is the full answer.
The physical benefits are the obvious ones: stronger bones, better cardiovascular health, and a habit of moving that tends to stay with them for life. But personally, I think the psychological and social gains matter even more. Team sports teach children how to lose gracefully, how to take instructions from a coach, and how to be reliable to people who are depending on them. And those are things you simply cannot learn from a textbook. There's also a fairly well-established link between regular exercise and concentration in class, so it's not really a trade-off with academic work at all. If anything, active children tend to do better.
Question 3. Is it necessary to build public sports spaces? This one is a policy question, so the plan includes a caveat against my own position. And here is the full answer.
I'd say it's essential, particularly in dense cities. Private gyms and academies exist, but they price out exactly the families whose children would benefit most. So without public facilities, you end up with fitness as becoming another marker of privilege. And it doesn't have to mean expensive stadiums, a floodlit outdoor court, a decent running track around a park, or opening up school playgrounds at weekends can transform a neighborhood at a fraction of the costs. The one caveat I'd add is that building them isn't enough. They have to be maintained and programmed, otherwise you get these self-cracked concrete pitches that nobody uses.
Question 4. What do you think of companies donating sports venues for poor children? This is an evaluation, so the plan is deliberately two-sided. And here is the full answer.
I think it's admirable, and I'd rather corporate money went into something like that than into another advertising campaign. Children get facilities they'd never otherwise have access to, and the company earns goodwill so on the face of it, everyone wins. That said, I do have two reservations. The first is sustainability. A company can cut a ribbon and then walk away 5 years later when the roof starts leaking, whereas a local authority is at least accountable. The second is that it can quietly let governments off the hook. Charity starts to substitute for provision that ought to be publicly funded. So my view is that it's a very welcome supplement, but it shouldn't become the main strategy.
Here is the part 3 language bank from all 4 answers sorted by the job each phrase does. Commit, on the whole yes. I would say it is essential, so my view is that. Develop, simply because, which means that there is a well-established link between. Balance, that said I do have 2 reservations. The one caveat I would add is, and if anything. A word on the band. Across both parts, band 9 means speaking at length without effort, idiomatic and precise vocabulary, a full range of grammar used flexibly, and pronunciation that is effortless to follow. And here is our caveat, which we always show. Band 9 here is our own quality assessment against the public ielts band descriptors. It is not a certified examiner score, and no video can guarantee you a band. Treat these as models of technique. That is the full part 2 and part 3 walkthrough. Here is your challenge. Set a timer for 1 minute and write your own note grid for this same cue card. Then record yourself for 2 minutes without stopping and without restarting. Play it back once and mark only one thing. Did every prompt get a vivid detail? Then answer the 4 part 3 questions using a BEB 60 seconds each. Post your part 2 opening line in the comments because I do read them. Thanks for watching, Master 79, and I will see you in the next one.